WCW Fall Brawl 1996 or Autumn Brawl if you're an asshole. We got the NWO versus the Horsemen. We got the Giant versus Macho Man. We got Super Calo. You might be asking, who the f is Super Calo? Well, we get into that and more on the Apron Bump podcast. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get started. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Apron Bump podcast. I'm your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle. How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's week is going well. Apologies for the one-day delay of this podcast. I hope you can forgive me, but I had to circumcise my goldfish yesterday, and I didn't really have time to get up here and edit everything and do all this. So, but we're here, we're queer, and we are here to talk a little Fall Brawl 1996. Talk a little WCW. A very pivotal show, actually, for many reasons, which we'll get into once we really get into the nitty gritty of it all. But main event, War Games, as per usual with these Fall Brawl events. We got the NWO. We got some new members of the NWO since we last touched all upon WCW, taking on the Horsemen and Friends. A lot of Sting shenanigans throughout the entire show and the match specifically. We also got the Giant versus the Big Show. The Giant versus the Big Show. The Giant, that's a dream match, actually, now that I think about it. The Giant versus Macho Man. We got the coming out parties of both Konnan and DDP in separate matches. We get into exactly why this show was so pivotal for those two gentlemen, the debut of the K-Dog character, as well as just a lot of fire and energy from DDP as well. Really throughout the entire show. I mean, I've been following WCW. I've been doing these reviews chronologically, starting at Spring Stampede 1994, and have gone all the way through the rest of 94, all the way through 95, and all the way through 96, up until this point, September of 1996. I would say pretty handily, this is the best WCW show that I've covered so far. The bar isn't necessarily high, but the NWO storyline is really starting to cook at this point. But also just the in-ring quality on this show, because like we got DDP, Chavo Guerrero, we got Rey Mysterio, Super Calo, we got Chris Benoit and Chris Jericho, a debuting Chris Jericho in WCW at this point, plus the Macho Mans, the Ric Flairs. I mean, this show is just marinated in delicious talents, and the Nasty Boys are here as well. But no, actually, I have a really unwarranted lust for the Nasty Boys. It's actually kind of, I don't know why I feel that way about them, but we get into that as well on the podcast. But I mentioned that this is the best show WCW has put on, at least in 1996 for sure. Has major ramifications for the hardest promotion battle of 1996, which continues here. Stick around to the end of the podcast, where we not only grade this show, but we compare what WCW is doing as a whole at this point. As of this show, as of September 15th, 1996, we compare the best and the worst, both in and out of the ring. We compare WCW against what ECW and WWF are doing at this point, and we'll see if there's any changes in the standings. As it sits right now, WWF is in the lead with 13 points, ECW with 6, and then WCW with 3. What do these points correlate to? What determines these points? We'll get into all of that towards the end of the episode. If you're unfamiliar with this process, or if you just want to go back, you want to relive the wrestling wars of the 90s with these three major North American wrestling companies, I suggest you go to apronbump.com and you go to the episodes tab, and you can select whatever promotion, whatever era you'd like to hear me recap in chronological order various timelines here on the Apron Bump, but you can go and select Wrestling Wars of the 90s, and that'll bring you to all of the WWF, the ECW, the WCW, all that stuff. It'll bring it to you in chronological-ish order and binge away. It's been a good old time watching the ebbs and flows and the ins and outs of all of these companies and how each company is kind of influencing each other as well. It's very, very interesting and entertaining to watch. But speaking of interesting, speaking of entertaining, speaking of delicious, my guest on this episode, JB from JB versus the World. You could check him out on X at JBV the World. All of his info, all of the socials, the websites, and all that stuff you can find in the description as well. JB does a lot of great content, does a lot of wrestling stuff, TV, sports. He's a lot of irons in the fire, this fellow over here. But it was a blast having him on. We've been following each other on X for a while, and figured I'd bring up. He's an Atlanta guy, big WCW fan from back in the day. He said he was present for a few major WCW moments, which I think we get into like towards the beginning of this thing. Give JB a follow. Hey, give me a follow as well at Apron Bump on all the social medias: TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, X, Omegle, Grinder, all that stuff. Especially TikTok. I've been doing a lot of TikToking, tic-tacking, gaining some steam over there. I've been having a lot of fun putting out content, and YouTube as well. Occasionally on YouTube, I'll drop videos more related to the current products. And just dropped one recently. It was kind of a theoretical video, just a fun little quick hitter. Well, it explains itself. But it's basically if the challenger in every main event was replaced by the winner of the opening match. So, and I'll be doing a lot more videos like that. It seems like it was pretty well received. So subscribe on the YouTube as well. I'm always bad at plugging that shit. Also, the Discord. Make sure if you want to have a good old time with some people that love wrestling and love tickling each other until we secrete liquid out of our pores, I suggest you join the Apron Bump Discord. I edited the link because I am an old man and I don't know how Discord works. I didn't know invite links expired after a week unless you change the settings. So I have updated the link in case you've tried before and haven't been able to get in. So it's a good old time there. We're going to be starting our pay-per-view predictions league here after WrestleMania. So make sure you get on board before that. All right. I think I've plugged enough. Why don't we get into some WCW? WCW Fall Brawl 1996 with myself and JB from JB versus the World. So Atlanta, huh? So you were a big WCW guy back in the day?
Listen, I was present for both the finger poke of doom and Goldberg's first championship win.
both great, right?
Yeah. Oh, not the finger poke of doom. Everybody hated that.
What was like the crowd like being there live for the finger poke of doom? Like what was, just describe the energy in the audience.
Frantic.
Yeah.
Like from where we were, it was like, what just happened?
Yeah, dude. Because like I had a similar experience because I was at the last WrestleMania. So night 2, Roman wins, and it is just a collective like, wait, what? No, I didn't know. No, they're gonna what? The wrong music's playing. What happened? So yeah, it's that's arguably like some of the most like entertaining stuff in wrestling. We just like, maybe not the poke of doom. Maybe that's a bad example, but
yeah,
maybe they jumped the shark there. Who knows? But
because I don't even think I was 10 then.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared because I was like the first time I've ever been in a building and it was shaking like that.
Really?
Like
were they still like throwing shit in the ring at that point?
Oh yeah.
Because that was what, 99?
Something like that. I want to say it was 98.
98, 90, yeah, somewhere there. So like definitely deeper into the NWO than we are here, but
yeah. Like it was crazy for Goldberg, but that was more like a positive energy.
Right.
But
of course, yeah.
But the finger poke, oh my gosh. I was scared. And we were high. So I'm thinking this building is going to collapse underneath my feet.
Right. God, man. The 90s was was a wild time. Even here in '96, like we're just starting to like they just turned the burner on the stove on the
Mhm.
NWO and like this whole era of wrestling, but you can definitely see like what it would go on to be. So, but you were able to check out Fall Brawl '96.
Yes. Yes.
Thoughts, overall thoughts before we get into the nitty gritty of it?
Man. Uh
Yeah.
it was the 90s.
You're not
It
wrong.
was it was some 90s. Can you cuss on the show?
Yeah.
All right, it was some 90s type shit.
I mean, dude, so I've been watching all these WCW shows. Like I started in mid '94 and I've been watching through all of the fucking Dungeon of Doom and the Johnny Be Bad and the Booty Man and all like it's not a lot of it has been good. But
The booty man.
you Booty Man guy? You strike me as a Booty Man guy.
Man, when I was a kid, I didn't know any better. If you were I liked white meat baby faces when I was a kid. Whether I should have or not. If you were a baby face as a kid, there was more than likely I was on your side.
I can already tell we're not going to be aligned on a lot of things, but it's okay.
Like, but I'm looking at this through an adult lens.
Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I guess Booty Man for as a kid, the stupid tassels and the music. I guess I could see it a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah, well, he's not here, thank God. But lots of other people are. Yeah, but I'll say, like, I enjoyed the show a lot, especially for this era. Like I said, we're only like in the beginning stages of the NWO, but I think they're really starting to catch fire here. We've added a few members since the last pay-per-view. It's no longer just that core 3 people, so it's starting to grow, and it's kind of a thread throughout the show. But overall, I thought like top to bottom, this is one of the better WCW events. I don't know what you remember about like '96, if you can like compartmentalize that at all. But do you remember like that year of wrestling?
Barely. For me, I started watching wrestling at the tail end of '95.
Okay.
So like WrestleMania 12 was like my first WrestleMania. Like I don't those are like the earliest memories of me watching wrestling. So a lot of that is like gone with the wind now. Now that
Yeah.
I'm in my mid 30s. So
Yeah, it's I guess you got in kind of on the upswing a little bit. You know, the late '94, like the early '95 stuff is just tragic to watch. It's just awful. But yeah, here, like I said, we'll get into it. But
my first wrestling match ever in life was Undertaker versus Common in the casket match at SummerSlam.
That's a funny first match. That wasn't a bad match though. That was a pretty good match.
I was entertained, and I cheered against the Undertaker, who would then, from that point forward, become my favorite wrestler.
Man, that's how things evolve. You were just a big comma mark, I think was the thing. So it clouded your judgment. You were the one comma fan back then, I think.
Look, I saw a black guy on TV, and I was like, "Oh, big tall black guy versus dead zombie guy, get him!"
Right? Sometimes that's all wrestling needs to be. You know, we always look too deep into the details of the build and the climaxes. No, just what race are they? What are they dead? Are they alive? That's really all it comes down to.
I mean, just especially like, being black, looking for somebody that you can identify with on TV at all times, and that was like not that common.
Right. Yeah, you had Kama and who else? Mabel. Yeah, you had Men on a Mission.
Did not like Mabel at all. Did not.
Oh, there you are. You just put your pants on.
No, I was finding my shades.
I got you.
Yeah. Finding my shades. Make sure I gotta adjust this the right way.
There you go.
So make sure everything is kosher. You can't see anything crazy.
Flexing the PS5, I see you.
Just a little bit.
I'm an Xbox guy, but I'll let it slide.
Actually, well, is there too.
Okay. I actually mostly play on PC anyways, but my Xbox is a great Netflix machine.
Actually, that's what my PS5 is these days mostly. I wish I had more time to play.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've spent all my time watching Chavo Guerrero matches, but speaking of which, we got the opening match here. DDP, Diamond Dallas Page versus Chavo Guerrero.
Yes.
So we got here. So DDP won the Battle Bowl a few months ago. He won the Lord of the Ring, I think they called it. Never really amounted to anything. I guess he lost it to Eddie Guerrero on Nitro leading up to this. So DDP's been fighting against the Guerreros, so we're both brand new. Well, Chavo more so than Eddie, but
this was Chavo's first pay-per-view.
Yes,
matter of fact, it was a couple people's first pay-per-view on this night.
Yeah, no, it was Chavo, I feel like he's kind of always been the same to me. Commentary said he's only been wrestling for a few years at this point, which I didn't really look into, but all in all, my main takeaway here was DDP. I mean, we know in hindsight what he would go on to be, so maybe that helps. But to me, this just felt like DDP's coming out party. I thought he looked like a star in this match.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a decent little opener. I don't know what you think about it.
Oh, man, definitely. And you could see the shades of what they were going to be, especially in the case of DDP. Chavo, young, fresh face. And it's so weird seeing both of them, but especially Chavo. Like, what's he, like 20 years old at this point?
It's gotta be. Yeah.
Gotta be. Like, but still, you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
You can see that Guerrero bloodline, like, and coming into play.
They were throwing up the ones before anybody was. I hear you. Yeah, it's Chavo, I feel like has just always had that dark cloud of being compared to Eddie Guerrero, of course, and Eddie's just.
All right.
He's Chavo Guerrero. You move Chavo's sliders all the way up, and you got Eddie. So,
and then he has to compete with not just Eddie, but Pepe as well.
Of course. And who can shine above Pepe? Really?
Nobody. Clearly, except for Moppy.
Moppy versus Pepe. Who wins that one? Do you think?
Oh,
first head, triple threat versus head.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think Air Grown Spider might come for the interference.
Did you ever play WWF Attitude?
Oh yeah.
Did you remember? I think was that the game that Head was a character you could play as?
That I don't remember.
Maybe I'm thinking of a different game. But yeah, there was a game where you could unlock Head, and it's just Head with no body, but you could still wrestle like he had a body. It was so stupid, but it was great.
What does everybody want?
Speaking of Head, I would love to give I don't know. I was gonna make a blowjob joke, but I couldn't think of one. DDP's here. And I mean, he's throwing out, dude, that spinning power bomb he does, where it's like he's countering a tilt-a-whirl into like a Blue Thunder type bomb. It just the crowd came on its feet. There was a few cases where DDP hit a move and like the crowd was with him. And
there was more than a few spots that you were like, man, that's it.
Right.
That was it. But Chavo, to his credit, like, he looked strong in defeat. They kept him in there. He didn't really give up, and that will be a thing that later can be a part of his character, his never willingness to give up.
I wish it would. Stupid ass frog splash. It definitely was a story here of him being resilient, but ultimately, I do like the finish though. DDP, so Chavo's going for a backslide pin, and then DDP like stomps on his foot and then turns him around, diamond cutter. Nobody kicks out of that at this point. Now everybody's kicking out of that shit, but in 96, nobody's kicking out of it. And old Diamond Dally gets the win. But yeah, I thought it was a good way to start the show, I thought.
Pretty solid opener. Wasn't the cleanest diamond cutter he's ever hit. But it was still fantastic to see. Like going back and watching 90s wrestling for the first time since the 90s by and large.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's some element of like, I like the fact that it looks a little clunky. It's like there's an element of realism to it, but I don't know. But it's the 90s. You kind of let things slide for it being the 90s. Speaking of which, we got old Mean Gene Okerlund here to kind of run down the history of the NWO thus far, which has existed for I don't know, like 2 or 3 months at this point.
3 months, yeah.
So we have obviously started out with the Hulkster and Scott Hall, Kevin Nash. it's like a video package running through all that, the Hogan turn and all that. And then we've also, since Hog Wild, which I believe was the last pay-per-view, we've seen
Yeah.
Ted DiBiase debut and has joined the NWO in a kind of a manager capacity. I think the whole deal is like
Financial
he
backer.
yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Then the Giant also joins the NWO because I believe, he correct me if I'm wrong, I think he wants to do movies.
He got paid off, basically. He got promised the fame and fortune from DiBiase.
There we go. See, that all kind of ties together and makes sense. I also think this is, when is the Waterboy in relation to this? Do you remember?
Oh man, Waterboy was a couple years off.
Like after
Couple
this?
years off. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, after, for sure. I think Waterboy was like, oh man, where does that place me?
I'm literally
I think
at
I wasn't
computer.
like, oh man, I wasn't even in middle school yet when the Waterboy came out.
It is 98. It came
So
out.
like 2 years off. Okay.
Okay, but they're probably, if not filming, they're at least casting, I would imagine, at this point. So maybe he's got the contract. Captain Insano. He's already got his singlet ordered, I think. So
show no mercy.
No way, man. Oh God. What a hoot this guy is. But so yeah, Giant DiBiase joining the fold, as well as Sting. A wink, joining the NWO.
That
was better than whoever the fuck played Sting in the main event, but it's like, woo! But we'll get into that. But before, so yeah, this is a little video package, kind of setting the scene for the main event, which of course will be War Games, NWO versus Horsemen and Company, Horsemen and Friends.
No lie, that video pack, the whole thing, like the invasion when they were in Daytona, I want to say they were in Daytona. When Rey Mysterio got launched like a lawn dart to that trailer, I was legit worried for like everybody who got attacked back there. They did that angle. They really did that.
They brought the realism to it, which is something that wrestling did not have, at least mainstream, United States wrestling. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because we had that, the backstage that was with when it was Nash and Hall. They had bats and they attacked Rey Mysterio, and I think like Arn Anderson and a few other people. They had ambulances come by. The whole locker room emptied. Like it was mid-match. They just stopped the match, and the whole locker room went out there to kind of run them off. And you have ambulances, like several ambulances and fire trucks.
And Savage trying to hop in the limo, trying to get he's an utter madman.
He's a psychopath, dude. But I watched that episode kind of recently, and that was like a 30-minute ordeal of just like, the cameras are backstage checking out. People are getting loaded on stretchers, and people are trying to like, what happened? Who attacked? What was there? A third guy? I don't know. A fourth guy? And it was like a very like, the tone of it was very like you said, like it prompts people to be scared when they're watching it. It's like, oh my God, these guys might be actually hurt, and the realism and the somber tone of it. And there was another angle. What the fuck happened? Oh, it was when Sting attacked, when they had the fake Sting
in the rain.
In the rain. He's in the limo. Sting, quote unquote, gets out of the limo and attacks Lex Luger in the parking lot, and they're doing all sorts of vandalism out in like on people's cars, and Eric Bischoff's on commentary like, oh, I don't even know how we're gonna continue, folks. I'm gonna try to collect myself, but again, that was just such a long, drawn out thing. I mean, do you remember like watching those Nitros back then and feeling that?
Every Monday night. I think the thing that got me about that one attack at Daytona, go back to that for a second, was when Rey was so banged up and they put him in that stretcher, they took his mask off. He was covering his face. Like that was like the moment that did it for me. But everything that they did back then, even when Eric Bischoff got power bombed, like my young brain didn't go, why don't you just call the police and get out of here? But it's like, man, like they really had everybody in the chokehold. Of course, like knowing like that was Razor Ramon, that's Diesel. Like, and they're not saying their names. They're not saying their names on purpose at this point because they're trying to sell it that this is a real invasion. And I really appreciated that little bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they set the tone for the Attitude Era. I mean, this whole, as it kicked it off, but we'll get back to that in the main event. Before that, we got a little fire and ice to talk about. A submission match. Scott Flash Norton versus Ice Train. Rest in peace, by the way.
Rest in peace. Yeah.
Damn, big Ice Train guy. Seems like you're. Seems like the kind of guy you gravitate towards.
Yeah, man, I really like Fire and Ice as a tag team. And
Yeah.
when he turned, and when Scott turned on him, it was like, boo you. And I'm like a fire guy. I like the heat, you know what I'm saying? I like a hot shower, you know what I'm saying? Like hot meals. I'm like, okay, like fire to the ice. And it's like, and when he did, it's like, oh, you son of a bitch.
I love the thought of you just like seeing flames on his trunks, and it's like, oh, yeah. I do like a hot meal and a hot shower. I kind of relate to this guy. Let me cheer for him.
Listen, I was always about the heat. And like when I got Pokemon, I started Charmander. You know what I'm saying? Like I've always been the fire guy. Like I got like fire in my chart. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like I'm always been a fire guy. So Scott Norton was like, yeah, cool, Ice Train, cool, but it's like, yeah, fire. But when he betrayed him, I'm like, oh man,
damn,
you suck now. I don't even know what you call you, Flash.
Would you say you cooled off on him after he turned? Come on, we're having a lot of fun. We have a little fun here.
That was cool.
This was an ice cold match. No, it's actually kind of a fun match, weirdly, because they had well, first of all, it's a submission match. Yeah. It's actually kind of an I quit match, I guess, because well, it's interesting because in like '96, like tapping out wasn't really a mainstream thing, even though that's how this match ended. But mostly submissions were like verbal at this point, and the referee has the mic in this match. He's like, you know, somebody will be in the submission and he'll hold the mic up to the guy. So it's essentially an I quit match. But it's just like two meaty guys slamming each other. So it's like, are these the guys we should put in a submission match? Like, I don't know. It's not. They're not exactly the technical masterminds I would imagine in this. But for what it was, I was entertained by it.
Like, I was Teddy Long. Like then, just seeing him, I'm like, he was a pretty big guy then.
He's a beefy boy.
Yeah, he was. I saw him at Dragon Con in Atlanta last year. Just completely random.
Really?
Completely random. And to see what he looks like now as opposed to then, I was like, man, that is two different guys. Like Teddy would look like he was pulling a hose back there. He might have been chilling with the Godfather back in the day.
I bet you he was. He was eating all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
Look, but but yeah, definitely having two big meaty men in there for a submission match was definitely a choice. Teddy interfering the way he was, and Ice Train's the babyface. Those kind of dynamics always kind of throw me off a little bit. But
yeah, again, I was going to ask because Ice Train was the babyface, but he comes out wearing like the towel. He's like Taz almost. He has like the towel over his head. Yeah. He's very serious because normally he's like very hype and he's doing his fist towards the crowd, but he's very like focused. I'm about to kill this bitch. And Teddy Long's there with him, keeping him focused. So it was almost like a little ambiguous who was babyface and heel here, but like you said, Teddy Long doing the interference just further confused the situation. So maybe that made the match maybe not as hot as it could have been, pardon the pun, but the finish, because like there's power slams, neck breakers, lariats, everything you would expect from these guys. And then Teddy, throughout the match, he keeps getting on the apron with a towel, threatening to throw in the towel for Ice Train. But eventually Scott Norton gets fed up, pulls in Teddy Long. But this distraction allows Ice Train to lock in a full Nelson. Face down, Scott Norton just eating the mat in a full Nelson, has no other choice but to tap out. And my note here is I had fun watching this, and ultimately, I guess that's what matters, right?
Yeah, for sure. Memory lane for this one. I vaguely remember this match. Heel babyface alignments kind of went at me at first for a lot of these, but this one's pretty clear from the jump, especially like remember what happened. That hurt me with Scott Norton betrayed. That really did hurt me.
You're still upset about it?
A little bit. And that was something would have been left under the train and the water on the bridge. But one of my closest friends, shout out to my boy Dahu, Scott Norton is his favorite wrestler.
I love Scott Norton too. I get it.
And he reminds me that Scott Norton is his favorite wrestler like every 6 months. Like every 6 months on the random. You know I like Scott Norton. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I know, bro. I get it.
You're the president of his fan club. It's fine. He's got fire. He got flames on his jackets, I'm sure, right?
Calls himself Flash.
Oh. Why is he called Flash, Scott Norton?
I have no idea. Like, there's nothing fast about you.
Yeah, he's like the opposite of Flash.
You're a big athletic guy. There's nothing about it that says speed.
No, he's a lot of things, but he's not speed.
Exactly.
But one guy that does have some speed is Juventud Guerrera.
Like
take it on. Yeah, well, I'm terrible at him, but that one I fell into that one. Juventud versus Konnan, a new Konnan debuting his new gimmick here, which is what everybody associates him with nowadays.
K-Dog.
K-Dog is here. He's got the beater. He's got the jeans, the glasses, the hats. Orderly, this guy. I mean, it's still very early stages. He's still kind of working it out a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think...
They match to the music and everything. The old music and everything.
Well, Dungeon of Doom as well. He's also a new member of the Dungeon of Doom, which... Sure. I guess that fits. I mean,
yeah, we lost a giant. Let's go get the former United States champion.
Yeah, I guess he is. And the current Mexican heavyweight champion, of course, even though he doesn't have the belt with him. So
that was odd.
We're speaking allegedly, I guess, that he's the champion.
Isn't that the AAA championship now? That belt?
You know what? That sounds right. That sounds right. I'm not going to do any research on it, but it's a fact because it's on the internet now. So who are your top 5 Mexican heavyweight champions?
Mexican heavyweights?
Yes. Yeah. Heavyweight champions.
Oh man, top 5 Mexican.
If you can name 5 of them, I'd be shocked.
I don't think I can name 5 off the top of my head.
I think Konnan just held it the entire lineage, maybe.
Konnan definitely did. Because everything you asked me, like who are the cruiserweights or cruiserweight adjacent guys, like I can tell you those guys. Especially back in those WCW days. As a matter of fact, like Juventud low key might have been my favorite one.
Really?
In the cruiserweight era, him and Ray were like 1A, 1B.
That's fair. Psychosis probably in there a little bit, maybe.
Yes, I was a Hector Garza guy.
Well, that's a sentence that's never been said on this podcast.
I was a Hector guy. Like, and then I like that corkscrew plancha.
Okay. No, I support it. I support it.
I loved it. Like just the Mexicans, the Mexican cruiserweights. Super Calo, definitely, for sure. Shame we never got to see Fragilistic Ray Spialidocious.
Well, so you're actually a Super Calo guy.
I enjoyed his appearances back in the day. Also, La Parca, of course, La Parca. La Parca was just entertainment.
Right. I was about to say, I'd never heard of Super Calo until this show, which we'll get to later in the event.
For sure.
But on the way there, we got Konnan defending his Mexican heavyweight title against Juventud. Like I said, new character, new look. I mean, this was just such a game-changing character shift for Konnan, I thought, because he had appeared, like you said, former United States champion, but he was always in matches that like nobody cared about. He had the stupid tassels and the colorful tights and comes out in the mask. Nobody really cared about him, I felt like. Having stinkers with the one-man gang and shit. But like here, he's I mean, this is the best match I've seen out of him thus far. I mean, it's almost like this character rejuvenated him. Like it gave him like a lit of fire underneath of him because he's like feeling himself. Like he hits the rolling lariat that he does and the crowd pops and he's like shaking the ropes like Bill Alfonso. Throwing out huge suplexes, German suplexes, gorilla pressing Hoovy over the ropes.
That one German he did, that snap German. Oh my God,
dude! Are you talking about like the wheelbarrow German that he did like towards the end? Dude, I've never seen it executed better than this match. That was crazy.
That crowd was not. They weren't dead, but they were muted. They came alive for that one.
Yeah, they came alive for like things worth coming alive for, I felt like.
Yes.
They're in North Carolina, right? So it's a hotbed for...
Yeah.
Yeah, so these people, they enjoy the wrestling, for sure.
Flair country.
Exactly.
Flair country. North Carolina's Flair country.
Overall, thoughts on this match?
Oh, man, it was definitely fun. Shout out to Juventud Guerrero, recovering after falling when he did injuries.
Dude, what the fuck? I like barely caught it. I was like looking at my phone. I look up for a second, and this stupid ass tripping over the stairs coming out.
Like
Oh my
memory
God.
unlocked. And when you hear about how Juventud was down backstage and how he wasn't his person, it's like, okay, this makes sense. He's so caught up in receiving the adulation that he forgot his
He's
footing.
never heard cheers before. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, it was a fun time. Definitely like the early days of Juventud Guerrero. Man, that power drop he does at the end. I forgot all about that until I saw it again.
Yeah.
That was before he started doing the Tequila Sunrise.
Right.
There. But
yeah.
It was a fun match.
Yeah, it's like the power drop.
Yes. And probably a top 5 Konnan match for me. Like
really?
It was, yeah. And it's not that's a dry list.
Yeah, honestly, probably not a lot to pick from. Probably easy.
There's not a lot to pick from.
Yeah, his one-man gang match isn't in there. His El Gato match.
You know what? I did enjoy the El Gato match. I don't think it was like Great American Bash or something like that.
No, you didn't enjoy El Gato. Don't sit there and lie to
young.
me. The cat.
I was young. I think that was Great American Bash.
I think so.
I think that was Great American Bash. I enjoyed that as a kid. I enjoyed that he had like the pink outfit on with the mask with the little weird eyes on it.
And you're sitting there as a kid. You have a comma poster on one wall. You have an El Gato poster on the other wall. What the hell? What do your friends think when they go into your room?
Oh my God. You don't want to get into that.
Yeah, we don't. That's a whole other podcast in itself. Also one thing, and I think this happened in the DDP match as well. And kind of throughout the show, they're using both rings because it's War Games, it's the main event, so obviously they have the 2 rings set up. And normally, at least nowadays, they'll stick to one ring and they won't ever veer to the other ring. But here, I think Konnan doesn't he like throw him from one ring to the other at some point, and
he chucked him a few times, but yes,
no, he was like a sack of bricks. Hoovy, I think at one point he like walks the ropes like from one ring to the other and then hits a cross body, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, he went springboard, 1 rope, 2 rope, dive.
Oh man, these luchadors, they see all these ropes. Oh, there's so many opportunities for stupid shit. But it was great. Konnan hits a power bomb on the floor at some point, and he's like shaking the barricades, getting in people's faces. But ultimately, Hoovy, he hits a few moves towards the end. He's at 450 and a really bizarre looking twirling splash. I don't know. It's because it's not a 450. It's like a 450, but he's spinning horizontally instead of vertically. It didn't look.
It was the advent of the corkscrew plunge.
Is that? I mean,
it wasn't.
It didn't work for me, brother.
It was weird. It was weird.
Yeah, power drop wins it for Konnan, and it's very similar to the DDP match, and that like I feel like Konnan was definitely the star here. I mean, Juventud looked really good too, but Konnan, I mean, he's up and sky's the limit for him at this point.
Yeah, it was clear. It was clear what they were doing. New attitude. There was on commentary about like they try to play his street cred. Like this is the life he's trying to lead now. Like, you don't know this man. You don't know where he's been. You don't know what he's gone through.
No. They see the do-rag and they're like, oh, that fella means business.
Oh man.
That's all you need. Well,
hey dog.
We got a couple of dogs on this next match. We got Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho. Ooh-wee. Couple babies here wrestling. Yeah. Jericho's first pay-per-view.
Yes.
Chris Benoit, I mean, he's a member of the Horsemen, so he's super over at this point. He throws up the 4 and everybody just fucking loses their shit. And they're in Winston-Salem.
The Canadian crippler.
Yeah. Couple Canadians here, but
yeah.
I described this match as just intense. Like I felt like just a fight. This match, like the previous matches were very like, let's do some fancy moves, but this one it felt like a lot of chop battles, a lot of forearm strikes, a couple of high impact moves towards the end. But it was a pretty good one. Like I said, it felt like a fight. I was invested in the brawl between these two, and seeing these two in their very early stages was interesting to watch. So I enjoyed it. What about you?
I felt like this match was very much in line with how today's modern style is. Well, just like with the versatility of like different things they were doing, like the strikes and the
Yeah,
high impact moves and the technical prowess that they displayed against each other. This was probably my second favorite match of the night of the event.
really.
Like, yeah, probably. And this, honest God, this is probably like my fourth time watching a Chris Benoit match since way back when, and it's like it just reminded me, like, man, this guy's so
Really.
freaking good. He was so good. And
Yeah.
early, everything was crisp, everything was quick, everything was deliberate. And then looking at Chris Jericho, you see like the makings. He's not there. I'm not sure if he's Lionheart Chris Jericho at this point or that had passed already.
I don't know if he ever brought that over to WCW. I could be wrong though, because
They
he
called him
wrestled.
Lionheart for a
Well, did they?
while.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I was about to say
and
in
they dropped
ECW right
it.
before this he was, but yeah.
Yeah, and they dropped it right before the Dean Malenko feud.
Right.
Arm before Armbar. They dropped it right around that time. But man, you could see the early makings of like what Chris Jericho would come to be. Like he's energetic, he's trying to get people into it, and he's not quite over yet. But it's
Mhm.
like time. You just need time with him at that point.
Yeah. I mean, they need some video packages for Chris Jericho, I think, is the issue. That's why people
Yeah,
didn't care about him, right? I mean,
you're right.
more th-
You couldn't Google him then.
Yeah, was Google around in 96?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
we
think I don't think so.
got fucking go to the library and get an encyclopedia, look
You're
up
right.
Jay and find Jericho. I mean, you can't do that, right?
Go to Encarta or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, like you said, very early stages here. Still just the kind of just the fiery baby face, but it would all turn around for him once he, started putting his hair in stupid ponytails and
Mm.
whipping out scrolls of moves against Dean Malenko, but introducing him to the audience here, his style, and obviously Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, they would wrestle a ton over the years. They had already wrestled a bunch at this point. So the
Yeah.
innate chemistry is there. So it was fun. I mean, it's pretty much what you would expect from these two, I would say.
Oh, for sure.
Um, yeah, Benoit. I mean, Benoit is such a beast. It's just so like it
And
almost
then
makes me mad whenever I watch Benoit matches because like, dude, this was so good. It was so
yeah,
good.
and him like actual legit have a top 5 matches for
Yeah.
him, or at least top 5 opponents.
Oh yeah,
Like,
for sure.
and man, like he was amazing. It's the whole thing how that ended was just a crying shame. And
Yeah.
we're not here to talk about that, but it's like this was like looking back at it, it's like this is like the signs of what was to come for both of them. And their best matches were so far ahead of them.
Mm-hmm. No, their
What a time.
their ladder match at Royal, I think it was Royal Rumble 2001, is probably my
Mm.
favorite like singles ladder match for sure to this day. I mean, they were just
Oh,
so good.
okay.
Um,
And
but who wins this one? Yeah, Benoit wins with
Benoit.
a top rope back suplex, which was nice to see because it's like you look at it, it's like a devastating move. But I feel like if you just turned on Rampage or some shit, that would just be like an opening match to kind of set the tone for the thing. But I mean, there were a few like avalanche, like superplex type moves in this, like towards the end of it, and obviously the suplexes and the lion salt
Or-
type stuff. But Benoit wins, and Horsemen. We're in Horseman country, so they can't lose. I think is
of
the
course.
rule. So
Yeah.
until the main event, I guess. But I
I'm
digress.
I'm grateful that the stars in this event were so top heavy. Like they're all like in the war games and like the
Mm,
top 2 matches. So you get to see a lot of these younger guys or a lot of these talent that we probably wouldn't have seen otherwise on this card. Um,
right.
super grateful for that.
Yeah, and they took that opportunity, these younger guys, and I feel like they grasped it, and in the years to come, like Conan's and the DDPs, they would become huge stars, and of course Jericho and Benoit would do what they did. So,
Right.
um, but well, now we're at what everybody has been waiting for. Super Calo is here. Who has the best mask of all time, and why is it Super Calo?
Oh man. You said it. It's just him. It's him, one-on-one. And notice, the little details, he has a spot in the back of his mask where he could put hair to grow, but there's no hair.
Oh.
He was bald.
But he has the option.
And versatility is key.
That's what he always says.
Yes. I heard him.
You heard him. So his mask, for anyone unfamiliar with the Super Calo, which I assume everybody is except you, his mask has sunglasses built into them, as well as a hat. Like how would you describe the hat?
Like a Kango, like a reverse Kango.
Sure, reverse Kango. And he has the t-shirt, the shorts, I think, like the longer shorts, kind of a cholo-y kind of guy.
But
with
his clothes were not as baggy as Konnan's, but they were pretty baggy.
Right. He's taking on Rey Mysterio, and this is for the Cruiserweight title. Of course, Rey Mysterio is the champion at this point.
Calling out Dean Malenko.
Yeah, because he won it from Dean on Nitro. I think it was a few months ago at this point. So they've had a couple matches. They've traded the title a few times. This match here, I mean, it was fine. I would honestly probably put this towards the bottom for me on this card.
Really?
What about you? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good matches on this card, is why I say it. Yeah. But I feel like in this match, you didn't see a ton until the finish. I feel like there weren't a lot of stuff, maybe other than a few spots here and there, that we didn't see already in this show.
That's fair. I would put it somewhere toward the middle-ish for me. Like, I was a Rey Mysterio guy, Rey Mysterio Jr. You put him and Hoovertune on TV, I was seated when I was young. Yeah,
of course.
And like with Rey, it was just like then especially, it was like you just tune in, you watch, and you just keep your eyes on the screen because you just never know what's gonna happen. Like you don't know if he's gonna do some sort of tope or a Tiger Fame before it was a 619, or like just something crazy. He's gonna leap over a ref. You never know, but you were seated and you tuned in, and I enjoyed this. I thought Super Calo was a nice little foil. It's obvious that Rey was gonna win. And I think this was Super Calo's first appearance in WCW.
Yes, at least on pay-per-view. I can't remember if he was on the Nitro before this or whatever, but
definitely on pay-per-view. I think Mike Tenay mentioned that he was like only been in the States for a few weeks.
Oh, okay. So, gotcha.
Yeah. But, good Lord, Mike Tenay back then.
You a Mike Tenay guy?
Man, when Mike Tenay was on commentary back then, I was like, ooh, who's going to be here?
Iron Mike. I'm Mike too.
Between him, I don't know, the commentary in general, just seeing like Dusty and Bobby with young, barefaced Shivani.
Ooh, it's funny. He's like the exact same guy, just without the facial hair almost.
Yeah, the exact same.
Sounds the same. I mean, it's wild.
He just right there in AEW.
And dude, we could do a whole hour-long podcast on just funny things the brain says during the show. He's just on one every single night. Fantastic.
I miss him. I missed him. I miss Dusty. I miss like the commentary, like chemistry that they had together, especially like during these cruiserweight matches where obviously Mike is the only one that knows what he's talking about when it comes to these people, and Brain is just like challenging and questioning and making these jokes and awkward comments, and it's like, dude, calm down.
It's Mike Tenay up front leading the charge while you got three bumbling idiots behind him. It's just, it works though. It's very entertaining.
It worked. Because in the same breath, while Brain was making those jokes, when something legitimately great happened, he would react like the rest of us.
Oh, no, he was a pro. He knew what he was there to do. He wasn't there to just bullshit. Sure. Yeah, for sure.
One of the greatest of all time, man.
Absolutely.
Easily
absolutely.
Of all time.
And so is Super Calo, right?
Oh,
he's out here.
For sure.
That's that rolling senton he does from the ring to the floor was pretty brutal looking, because like Ray was on his back on the floor, and then Calo just does a front flip senton from the ring to the floor, splat, lands on him.
He's like, hey, stay here on the floor with this half-inch mat. Don't move. I'll be right back.
It looks I feel like Calo took more damage than Ray could have on that because he just hit him with an elbow.
Man, what was Ray there? Like $165?
at the most. Jeez, he is a little boy at this point.
He is tiny man.
And they're using both rings again, kind of similar to the Hoovertude stuff. You got Ray kind of bouncing from one ring to the other a few points.
Oh yeah.
The finish was hilarious for a couple of reasons. So Ray is in between the rings, like on the little platform in between the rings.
Mm-hmm.
Calo comes, he like tries to do like a running drop kick or something, but Ray gets out of the way and Calo bounces off the ropes, lands right on his neck. And then Ray goes into the opposite ring, springboards, moonsaults backwards in the opposite direction of Calo, and then does a springboard from one rope on one ring to the other ring, and then springs into the ring and does a West Coast pop onto Calo and gets the win. But Heenan's like, oh, he went the other way. He's going the wrong way. It's like a nice, I think he's got a plan there, Brain. But very unique finish, to say the least. And it was a decent match, I thought.
Yeah, that West Coast pop at the end, like it wasn't like a flashy, it wasn't like a jackhammer or jackknife or a sharpshooter or anything of the sort. But that West Coast pop, then that was enough. It was unique. It was to him. It fit what he was doing against the people that he was fighting against, and it worked.
Yeah. I mean, the audience, like in the United States, they weren't seeing anything like that at this point. So it was enough to be like, oh my God, what just happened? And you could you could understand the confusion of somebody getting hit with that to not be able to kick out. So I thought it worked.
Yeah. Wait till Halloween Havoc in a couple of years.
Oh boy. I've heard that match is a bit of a dandy. I would say.
Man, it might be an all-timer.
Yeah,
in some circles.
Absolutely. Is it better than Harlem Heat versus Nasty Boys, though? Is the question.
Ooh, I don't know, because Harlem Heat had gang activity there. Lots of gang activity. You got the two big burly black guys. You have their manager, and then you have Colonel Sanders from KFC right there, like all in tow together against these two big, pigly, probably smelly.
How dare you? How dare you?
His name is Knobs. Does that sound like he smells good? Knobs.
What, Knobs and Sags? You don't think those guys wear deodorant?
Sags? You're defending Sags? The smell of somebody named Sags?
I've never seen two names perfectly describe people other than Knobs and Sags. I would tell you this though. I fucking love the Nasty Boys. I don't know what it is.
Oh man,
they're not good, but I love them.
They were. No, them and Public Enemy were not good at all. I remember.
Man, Public Enemy is a whole different thing. But
man, shout out to Rocco Rock.
Yeah, I'm more of a Johnny Grunge guy, but I digress. The only way I could discuss, so it's tag team titles on the line. Harlem Heat, Nasty Boys.
Who was the face? Who was the heel?
You ask a great question, and some questions don't have answers.
I'm just saying, because it's like, if you look at the situation, because you have 2-on-4, it's like I said, it's clearly gang activity taking place here. Like they're here to mob. They're here to mob and have a good time and just do their business and bounce out. On the other side of the equation, you just got the two of them, and he's like, yeah, they attacked Sister Sherry. What? They hitting women?
Look, Sherry's asking for it. She's running through the rings to get involved. She keeps getting on the apron. At some point, you just gotta smack a bitch. Am I right or am I wrong?
I'm not going to support Sister Sherry.
I'm not saying that I say that. I'm saying this is the perspective of the Nasties, not me. I would never.
I know. But yeah, that made me think, like, who was the face here? Who was the
So I do believe the Nasty Boys were the faces, just based on all the interference from Colonel Parker and Sherry. This match felt more Sherry than the four people involved in the match to me.
Yeah, Parker didn't do much of anything until the end, and then even that barely.
Parker's just bullshitting back there. He's just waiting for this match to be over so he can go backstage and give Sherry the real what to you. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
Hit her with the cane.
Yeah, yeah. Do a little KFC.
With a chicken tender.
Ooh, drumstick. What else?
Trying to get some of them thighs.
Oh, breasts, couple breasts.
Now we're winging it.
Oh, all right.
Playing her mac and cheese.
Yeah, mashing her potatoes.
Greening her beans. Greening the beans. No.
Green. No, I don't know if that one works. Famous bowl. KFC. Famous gravy.
Sliders.
Do they have sliders? I guess they have sliders.
They do have sliders. KFC. They got some new stuff now. I don't know.
I'll never Popeyes guy myself.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, Popeyes. That's the only thing I like out of the state of Louisiana besides the women and the accents.
You like the accents? Oh, let me tell you something. Get them gators out of my swamp. That's fucking
what are you talking about, baby?
You make a good point, actually. I never thought of it that way.
But also fuck the Saints.
Yeah. Well, Sherry's here. She's got chaps on.
Yeah, why? I guess it's a Colonel Parker thing. That's the fall. Why? And you're in North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm thinking, I guess I never really thought about it. Why is she wearing chaps and a leather jacket? That's not really the aesthetic of Harlem Heat or Colonel Parker.
A question for when we meet her on the other side.
That'll be the first thing I do. Just find Sherry and ask her.
For sure. Like the lesbian cloud could wait. Like definitely has to ask her about that.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well,
lots of interference, like a little bit too much. But what I did like is that they did not waste a moment. Booker T or Stevie Ray, somebody's interfering, they are like mobbing whoever's in the ring.
Yeah.
Like, he's over there. All right.
I mean, that's tag team expertise right there, man. Harlem Heat, they know what they're doing.
Every chance they got. Gotta respect it.
Love it.
Like
I mean, it's a activity.
It's
a classic rivalry here. Harlem Heat, Nasty Boys, kind of a race war of sorts, it feels like. But it was a clubbering, is how I would describe it. It was fine. Yeah. It was again kind of what you expect from these two. Ultimately, well, I think it's Knobs hits a big splash off the second rope. And then Sherry comes in and hits Knobs in the head with Colonel Parker's cane.
It broke off.
It broke that bitch off in his ass, I think. Is that what the kids are saying?
Broke that hoe off.
Exactly. That was the finish. The finish was broke that bitch off. Thoughts?
Yeah. Cracked that hoe wide open.
Yeah. Well, hoes were cracked open.
Raising
Randy. I'm trying to segue into Randy Savage versus Giant. Macho, Slim Jim, Slim.
Elbow drop.
Raising Cane. If you eat a lot of Raising Canes, you're not going to be slim anymore. But speaking of Slim Jim, Macho Man's here. Thank you.
You did it.
We all did it. We did it together. Taking on
teamwork makes the dream work.
Taking on Captain Insano here in the semi-main event. It was we talked about the Giant turning heel, joining the NWO, etc., etc. Another element here is old Nick Patrick, that shady minx.
Just out here hitting folks in the knees. Wasn't an accident. Was it not an accident? Is he on payroll? Is he with them? Is he not?
That hog wild shit. Oh, I tripped across the ring. Oh, whoopsie daisy, chop block on accident. This fucking guy. Don't even get started on his stupid pin cadence.
Exactly.
It drives me crazy.
Fuck you, pre-Lil Nate.
This stupid way he counts makes me want to vomit. This guy.
Who
But
had
he's here.
that porn stash? Hated it.
I do like the porn stash though.
I
do
did not
support
like
that.
it.
Yeah.
Porn stash with a sloppy dad bod, with the button up that was clearly 2 sizes too big.
Now I'm just thinking of Nick Patrick and porn. It's not really what I want.
Sorry. That's a choice.
It's not the first guy that I would want from wrestling to do porn. I'll say that. That might be a hot take.
Is it Val
Venus?
Venus?
In my life. Not current Val Venus. That's absolutely.
You see, he came at me earlier this week.
Oh no! What did he say?
He did. He called me an idiot and a moron that did, because he was talking about Cody and Cody's support of LGBT and trans kids. And somebody said like I played a porn star, like I'm not. I'm like, dude, but you benefited from it. You're kind of the part of the problem that you're talking about. Like, and Cody's out here just minding his own business. And this afforded you millions of dollars. You playing a porn star, being an influence, being seen, being like, out there. You consented to it, and you got paid millions for it, and you were seen by millions of people doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You're part of it.
Not only that, he was a porn star, got over as a porn star, and then they tried to make him not a porn star, and nobody gave a shit. So they just made him a porn star again. The people started caring. So that was like the only reason people cared about him. It's because of his stupid towel. Yeah.
And then to make it even worse, like at the end of the day, you still go by Val Venus.
Yeah, it's his Twitter handle, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, like what was it, Big Valboski or something like that? Or Val Venus ENT or something like this? I don't know.
Ain't Sean Morley.
Who's that guy?
Chief Morley? No. Get this guy out of here. Well,
anyway, fuck Val Venus.
We always try to fuck Val Venus on every episode. So that's good. That's good. We got it in there.
Hey.
Well, he's not here, but you know who is here is Randy Savage and the Giant. So
Savage jokes.
Yeah. So this goes back to Hog Wild, where the Giant lost the World Championship to Hulk Hogan. And Randy was like, "Hey, listen here. You were the last line of defense. It was your job to beat Hogan, but you couldn't get it done, yeah." Or something along those lines.
Very energy talker he was.
Yeah, I love when he had a promo before this, and he's always like back to the camera. Like he never shows his face for whatever reason. I don't know if that's intentional, if he just is just so hopped up on cocaine he doesn't know what's going on. Probably a little both. I did enjoy this match though. It was just a match because Giant's dominating most of the time.
For sure.
It builds to Macho Man scoop slamming the Giants, which gets a huge ovation, and then the elbow, just the energy towards the end of this match was crazy. Just for a simple scoop slam and an elbow. I mean, granted, it's on a big bastard like the Giant, but I mean, the crowd ate it up. And ultimately, though, Hulk Hogan comes out and he lures Macho Man to the stage area because obviously he wants to get at Hogan, his former best friend. He wants to kill him. So he chases Hogan to the stage area, and lo and behold, the Outsiders are there with a chair. They attack Macho Man. They beat him down, roll him back in the ring. Nick Patrick missed all of this. I don't know what the hell he was doing, playing pocket pool in the middle of the ring with Giant.
He was back there doing this with them. I seen it on the screen. They were doing
right. Yeah, he's practicing. And gets rolled back in the ring. Giant pins him with a smug smirk on his face, and the Giant gets the win. So I thought this was fun. The NWO furthering their influence on the show, but Macho Man, being Macho Man, doing what he does. Nick Patrick, I can kind of give or take on that, but I don't know. What do you think about this one?
Man, this match only went like 7 minutes, and
that's all I needed.
Like I got a lot done in that 7 minutes, and I think like 3 minutes of it was him getting jumped.
yeah, for sure.
But Bobby Heenan said something about it. It's like, that's his fault. You left the ring. Nobody told you to do it.
Look,
and
he's not wrong.
That was Macho's like Achilles' heel, especially during that time, was that he was always so frantic and so always so like loony that he never focused on the task at hand. And that's what they said before the match. You need to focus on this. Don't look forward to Halloween Havoc. Handle this tonight. And he lost track of focus. And he had the match won. Like, you've been waiting this time. Wait 3 seconds. Wait 3 seconds. Get 1, 2, 3. Then go get him.
That's a good point. He's blinded with rage. This Macho Man.
Yeah.
This is downfall. I mean, maybe his downfall was jumping off a cage and landing on his feet, but that's a whole other thing.
Bonesaw was ready, okay?
But I mean, this was just like the thing I enjoyed about it was like they like I said, it was a simple match and a simple kind of finish, but the crowd was eating it up. Like they weren't like the wrestlers weren't in there like begging for pops, which is like what I feel a lot of wrestling nowadays can kind of be. Like, for example, I was watching Collision earlier, and you got Sammy Guevara jumping off a 30-foot ladder through a table, smashing beer bottles against Hobbs' face. Nobody's going to remember that in 2 weeks. But here, a scoop slam and an elbow was just, like, legendary, I thought. It's just like, there's something here to be said about just, like, characters you can invest in and just, like, building a simple story within a match. And I thought it all played out perfectly here.
Oh yeah, for sure. And that's part of I guess that's something they did better back then than they did now, like you just said. We got a lot of like skilled wrestling. I think the wrestling is more skilled these days, like the more abilities and how more widely
athletic.
Yes, and outwardly so these days. Like you're not gonna find a Brian Knobs in 2024 like that, unless you're about Tyrus. But
don't disrespect Knobs like that, okay?
But you're not gonna find any lumbering guys who aren't athletes anymore. Like even the bigger guys are athletes these days. But the focus on character was something they had back then. That even though they did a lot less athletically, those little things mattered so much more.
Yeah, I mean, as a testament to how hot NWO was, at least even at this point, it's at very early stages here, and that segues us perfectly into the main event here. We got all War Games on our hands here. We got the NWO versus Team WCW. So NWO is represented by Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and quote unquote Sting. With Ted DiBiase along ringside outside of the cage with them. And you got Team WCW. We got Arn Anderson, Ric Flair, Lex Luger. And that's it, allegedly. They're just going to go out there as 3 people. We don't need Sting. He turned on us. We don't need him. They're cutting a promo before the match. And Sting walks in. He's like, guys, it wasn't me, Lex. We're best friends. 6 days later. We own a gym together. Do you not know what my face looks like? Like, that wasn't me that attacked. It's like,
but Stinger, I saw you. I don't believe you. I can't believe you.
It's a good Lex Luger. You got the essence of his hollow head. But yeah. Well, What are your thoughts on the War Games match type itself? Like just the stipulation, or just like I guess in general back then, nowadays, whatever.
I think I like it a little bit more these days, because like of the way it's structured and like kind of like how WWE's kind of like dressed it up to be bigger than what it was back then, and then how the added stipulation of if you leave the cage, you forfeit your team, because that's something that couldn't have happened in this match for sure. But it definitely played up better for this. But yeah, War Games was just way different way back then. I think the presentation, like it's a presentation. I'm a presentation guy, like when it comes to these type of things, like story above all else, but then give me the style. They just kind of just went into the main event. There was not like the music or like a lot of introductions. They just like, okay, here we go, 5-minute intervals, go. And then yeah, the match was what it was, which we'll get into.
Yeah. War Games to me, like, first of all, if you're not going to have blood, I wouldn't even bother. Although I don't, was there blood in this one?
No.
I guess not, huh? Yeah, I guess it wasn't really. I don't know, but
No.
I don't know.
This
Just
whole
the
thing was
lack
like
of.
18 minutes.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. I guess maybe that because that's another criticism I have of war games. At least nowadays, they just go on too long. I mean, they're like an hour long when you include entrances and stuff.
Yeah.
But when it's a quick hitter like this, I can stomach it a little more. And with just the build to this, I thought it definitely worked. It made sense. And I mean, being in Flair country, you got Horsemen on one side, you got the devious NWO on the other side. Like everything building up to this, just the way it culminated to it, it made sense and I liked it. And then really the Sting story is kind of the only thing that matters here, really, because like you said, there's not even like entrance music or anything. It's like get to it.
Like next thing you know, Scott Hall's coming out first with Ted DiBiase. It's like, oh, we're doing this.
Right. And so Scott Hall and Arn Anderson start out. Crowd explodes when Arn Anderson starts walloping Scott. I mean, they're just big on the old Arn ski here. And then you got
enforcer.
Nash comes in, then Luger comes in, then Hogan comes in. Luger and Arn pile on Hogan, and this is when the outsiders kind of take advantage because everybody's got tunnel vision on Hulk Hogan. They just want him and nobody else, and that's kind of to the downfall of Team WCW here.
And also that was played up on commentary as well.
Yes. And then Ric Flair comes in, and then there's a little moment of a 1v1 versus Hulk Hogan, which is like what they've been building to for weeks, if not months at this point.
Yeah.
And Flair just low blows everybody in the ring, which is hilarious. The crowd's eating it up. and then Sting, quote unquote Sting, is up next. When you were watching this, did you think that was Sting?
No chance.
I thought it was kind of a good attempt at Sting.
Yeah.
They had similar builds, the similar movement. The hair was a little sketch. The voice was probably the most sketch, just from the whoa kind of deal. But I don't know. I guess it was as good as they could have done, huh?
Weak stinger splashes. The outfit wasn't quite the same, and then just he didn't do like the same it was like ski. All right.
Who would win a match between fake Sting and Renegade?
Oh. Man.
Are you familiar with Renegade? That might have been before you got into it.
Man, that's like right on. That's something I found out later was Renegade. I didn't watch that in real time, I don't think.
Oh, well, lucky you.
But nah, fake Undertaker. The Undertaker. Or fake Kane, whoever was that.
It was Luke Gallows.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Old Festus was fake Kane.
And beat him.
Did he? Yeah. Huh. Dude, I remember being super into that storyline when it was happening, and then they just dropped it. I was so upset. But Kane's not here. Kane's not here. Colonel Parker and his Kane aren't here.
Nah.
Nope. We just got fake Sting. Cleans house, or he doesn't clean house. He just kind of gets in there. I mean, he does get some. He stinger splashes everybody. Like you said, probably doesn't get the height of Steve Borden, but he's trying. He's in there.
He got like 2 inches. He got like a solid 2 inches off the ground.
You know, what can you expect? It's an upper body business. We're not doing the athletics.
Ski.
Well, then the true Ski comes out next because they weren't even sure if they would have a fourth guy, Team WCW, but out comes the real Sting, which they should have. The two Stings are wearing different colored boots.
Yeah,
so you would think when they saw fake Sting out there with the black boots, they might be like, "Oh, that's not Sting.
You're a phony. You're
stupid Lex Luger." Love him.
That's hilarious.
The real Sting comes in here, and I do enjoy this. He comes in there, he cleans house. I mean, he just lays everybody out effortlessly. He comes face to face with the fake Sting, takes his shit out, splashes to everybody. I don't know if he does any death drops or anything. I'm not really sure, but
not
takes
yet.
the shit out of everybody.
Yeah.
So everybody's down. Everybody in the NWO is down. And then everybody on Team WCW is looking at Sting, and they're like, bewildered because, oh, what, you were telling the truth. We didn't believe you, but. And then Sting looks at him and he's like, is that good enough? You believe me now? And then does the up yours gesture with his arms and then
One of
leaves.
the first times I've ever seen that on TV as a kid.
I loved that because that was like a side of Sting, like you said, we've never seen before. And correct me if I'm wrong, is this like kind of what ignites the Crow Sting kind of character? Or is that not until a little later? Yeah.
Absolutely. This is like the last time he was seen on WCW TV until he started doing the Crow thing.
Yeah, because like I've been vaguely familiar on that kind of arc, but I wasn't really sure when exactly it started or how it started. But I love like how that all panned out.
Oh, for sure.
And he leaves, and it's like you're watching, and you're like, well, they kind of deserve it. They didn't trust him. Even commentary is like, we're sorry, Sting. Oh, geez. And the Sting's out of there, and then the NWO is able to use the numbers game to take advantage and ultimately fake Sting, puts the Scorpion Deathlock on the Lex Luger, all while Hulk Hogan is squeezing his head. And Nick Patrick, I believe, is the one that calls for the bell, right?
Yeah.
So just a lot of NWO tomfoolery here towards the end, but they come out on top, further solidifying this faction. And there's some post-match shenanigans too, but match itself, any other thoughts on that?
It was quick, pretty to the point. The whole thing was a Sting story, like we already mentioned. Yeah, and it fell apart pretty quickly after he left. It's almost like they got all their HP back after he left the cage. He came in like gangbusters. I remember watching that, like, okay, it's over now. Like, he came in like Goku. I'm like, okay,
right.
And then it all just fell apart.
It came crashing
One thing that was
down.
annoying. One thing that was annoying to me during this match, and it's just a small thing. Like when you knew somebody was about to get hit because they come in with a clubbing form, like, oh, they just stand there.
Dude, it's 90s, man. It's I'm gonna get you. They got me. It's like
you can see some of them mouthing it. You can see some of them mouthing it too. Like, hey, I'm over here. Come get me.
Oh, especially Hogan, dude. That dude could never figure out how to swing anything.
No. No, he was worse than Cena ever was about that.
Yeah. Well, so Lex passes out. He's done for.
Yeah.
They lift the cage. Macho Man comes back out. He wants Hogan. But Giant comes out. A little Pearl Harbor job to Macho Man. So Giant beats on Macho. They gang up on Randy Savage. Big old choke slam to Macho Man. So he's out of there. Flair gets taken out at some point. I don't remember what happened to him.
They kept it going for a minute, and then the numbers got to him.
Yeah, and the way the show closes was crazy. So Macho Man, he's getting beat down, and Miss Elizabeth comes out, which is very interesting because for context, they had split up. Liz had been with Flair for a few months at this point. They were using Macho Man's money. Like there was a blood feud between Flair and Macho Man. So Liz and Macho hadn't been associated in years at this point. But she comes out there. It's like, oh, this is too much. I got to protect him. So she comes out, like kind of crawls on top of Macho to protect them. And Hogan sprays NWO on her back. And Giant's like barking at her, which I thought was a choice. I don't know if you caught that. It keeps it very out of place. Like, okay, Paul, easy now.
It was Giant's
I guess. Yeah, good point. But
you don't know how they talk.
I guess I don't. I guess I gotta learn. I was watching this with my wife, and she was like distraught watching this because like she knows Miss Elizabeth. She's, oh, he's not gonna paint on her, is she? Is he? And then Hogan does, and he's like spitting on her, and like I mean,
calling them losers till death do you part. Well, I'm gonna accelerate the process more or less to paraphrase what he said. Like, man, this is big business. This is very serious talk you're talking.
This closing angle I thought was great.
Oh yeah, because it's clear like that's the main event for Halloween Havoc.
Yeah,
that's for the world title.
Right.
Um, and that was going to be part of the deal. And that's why I wasn't so, like, looking back at it, I wasn't so happy about like Giant going over on him, even though it
Hmm.
makes sense. I'm always a advocate of like keeping like your challenger strong going into fighting the champion, whether they're face or heel. But
Right.
as far as the angle is concerned, like this was like very, very well done. Very well done.
Yeah. And I mean,
It makes you
Macho. Yeah, no, Macho. I mean, he looked strong in his match with Giant, and it's all like numbers game stuff. But yeah, I agree. Like, but at the same time, it makes you want to see Macho get his revenge for sure. So that's what they're going for. I thought they hit it out of the park here. So,
yeah.
um, and then they storm the commentary table to close the show, and they get their mics on. And do you recall anything they said?
No, I don't.
I don't even think they had a plan. I think they were just talking shit. Like, oh, the NWO's here. Good night, or whatever the fuck. I don't
Let's
know.
vacate out of here. They did that a lot. They scurried like rats whenever they came close after that first time.
Yeah. It just adds to like the realism of the whole thing. How this in this
Yeah.
universe, if the NWO's here, you got to get out of there. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean that brings Fall Brawl to a close. Overall, like I said, I thought it was top to bottom one of the stronger WCW pay-per-views of this era, at least, or of this year. But I don't know. Any other overall thoughts on the show? Anything maybe we missed?
It was very fun. Like overall, I thought it was very fun.
Yeah.
I think we covered any like extra notes we could have covered, especially about Chavo's first pay-per-view, Chris Jericho's, Super Calos, um, like the angles, like I think we covered like hit about every major beat and every like minute detail we possibly could. Yeah, very fun show. I I very much enjoyed the cruiserweights. The gang activity from Harlem Heat, I'll always go up for. And I don't think the War Games match was a strong match, but the story and the angle, especially in the post,
Mhm.
was great. And you got to do that, especially if you're like trying to tell like a longer form narrative. And I don't think we've seen anything like that done as well as successfully from then to like the Bloodline last year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
for sure.
you got to have those angles. You got to have a reason to care. I got to have a reason to invest into the next thing.
Yeah, it's almost like they're looking ahead towards Halloween Havoc. It's almost like that War Games was just there to build to that
Yeah,
match. It was like an extended angle more so than a match, but
yeah.
they didn't stretch
And
it out too long, which
but it didn't feel like it. Like like
yeah.
like we're back watching it. It didn't feel like this was like just a prelude to Halloween Havoc. It felt like it was its own thing, which a lot of shows kind of fall into that trap. A lot of matches fall into that trap.
Hmm.
Like it's just a prelude to the next thing. Like
No, I
that
mean,
that
um,
Savage Giant match really like it did a lot in terms of like building where his focus is and how he's going to the main event next month and how he can't
mhm.
lose focus and how he has that temper and he's never been able to control it and how it drives him and it took it to the post match angle after everything that happened and yeah, it just all just rolled in there together.
Mhm.
Makes you wonder what
Yeah.
happened later.
Don't know, man. We're just gonna have to tune in to Nitro to find out. I mean, it seems like it's like WCW versus the world at this point. But
Ah,
speaking of which, appreciate it, man. Appreciate you joining the show here, talking some WCW. Where can everybody find you, listen to you, look at you, taste you, all that stuff?
I don't know about the tasting part. I'm pretty sure somebody might get upset about that, but
Oh yeah.
but you can find me at JB versus the World. I don't have a little thing in my bob like I normally have my stream. Anyway, you can find me at JB versus the World, spelled out, smushed together. You say it all together like a Tribe Called Quest on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I have my central hub at jbversustheworld.com. And if you want to argue with me on Twitter or just talk wrestling or just shoot the shit, you can find me at JBV the World because versus was just too long for Twitter.
I agree with that. Hey, I just learned that Questlove was not in Tribe Called Quest.
Really?
I is that I mean, I don't know. I felt very stupid when I learned that, but I guess it makes sense. I guess it makes sense. But yeah, Questlove. I mean, that's a whole other podcast in itself.
For sure. Shout out to Questlove, though.
Shout out. If you get anything from this episode, ladies and gentlemen, shout out Questlove.
Shout out to Questlove. Like, for real. I still feel bad about what happened with him and the Will Smith slap and all that, because I took his thunder. Anyways.
Well, that's next episode. That's a good cliffhanger. That's our spraying paint on Miss Elizabeth's back. Once again, thank you to JB for joining me on this lovely, lovely episode. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure having old JB on. We'll definitely be doing this again. Go give him a follow at JBV the World on X and all the other social medias that you can find in the description. Subscribe to his YouTube, all that stuff. Follow me at Apron Bump, yada, yada, yada. Hey, all there is to do is hit that goddamn jingle, Bartholomew. WCW, ECW, WWF, who's the hardest promotion? Eric or Vince or Paulie? I think we can agree, though it's mostly shit. Alrighty then. First of all, if you're watching on YouTube, I will be sharing my screen here if you want to follow along. But if you are in audio land, I will also walk you through it. So the hardest promotion battle of 1996, WWF versus WCW versus ECW at this point and time, September 15th, 1996. We look at the best, the worst, the bad, the ugly, the gay, the straight, all of it. And we'll get into all the points and the razzle dazzle and all that stuff. But first of all, let's grade this show, shall we? From a scale of S to F, S being best show of all time, F being a show that I'd rather stick a needle in my urethra than watch. Which are a few of them on so far in 1996. But Fall Brawl 1996. What are we thinking here? I'm telling you guys right now, it's at least a B. At least a B for sure. I loved this show. I loved this show. I thought it was from start to finish. I thought the energy was great. I thought the in-ring was great. The NWO story is very strong. While there might not be a ton of other strong stories on the like in the company at this point, I think the pay-per-view was just very paced. It was paced very well, and I had fun watching it, which ultimately is like the best. You can look at all the details and the stats and you could put your stopwatch on to count how many minutes and seconds of wrestling there was on the card. But ultimately, if you had fun watching it, that's really all that matters. My main question here is this A territory? Now, at this point, the only show that I've given an A this year is WrestleMania 12, which begs the question, is Fall Brawl 1996 as good as WrestleMania 12? Kind of apples and oranges here, because WrestleMania is the big spectacle. But is it though? Actually, is it though? Because I mean, yeah, WrestleMania is WrestleMania, but you look at the nuts and bolts of the thing, they're kind of the same. It's a fucking arena with probably the similar attendance, I would guess. Do I throw an A at Fall Brawl? I'm telling you, man, I enjoyed the show. I really did. What was bad on this show? I mean, like Nasties and Harlem Heat was whatever, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it was offensively bad. Dog, I might throw an A at this. I think it might be like A- territory. I'm giving Fall Brawl. Here, hold on. Maybe hold on. Am I getting ahead? I might be getting ahead of myself. I'll tell you this. While the NWO story is great, the main event itself was kind of was it lackluster though? It was quick, but there were good story beats, and I guess the story beats took up as much time as anything else, so maybe it wasn't bad. But you know what? I'm throwing an A at it. Fuck you. It's my podcast. I can do what I want. We are giving Fall Brawl 1996 an A, which is rarefied territory so far. Like I said, there's only been one other A so far, and WCW hasn't been very strong. So that's a good sign for WCW, because they're currently in last among the three companies. So now that we've graded the show, Next step is to go to this tab right here and see which promotion has had the highest average grade among their pay-per-views so far. And currently still, WWF still has the highest average grade at about a, what else would that be? Like a C+, I guess, on average. Whereas WCW is more like a C- on average. So we go to the scoreboard here, where we have all of our criteria, and each criteria has its own point value associated to it. The company that gets the superlative gains or loses those points. So the highest overall average pay-per-view grade, like I said, WWF. So they maintain those 6 points for that criteria. Best pay-per-view of the year. Now, finally, we have some discussion here, because so far WrestleMania 12 has kind of held the monopoly over this because they're the only A. So it's not really worth, thinking about, because it's the fucking highest grade objectively. But we're introducing some subjectivity here. WrestleMania or Fall Brawl? I still think WrestleMania probably takes it. I'll tell you this. The height of Shawn and Brett, the Iron Man match, like the last 10, 15 minutes, I mean, the peak of that was higher than anything on Fall Brawl. And you had like the Roddy Piper Gold Dust stuff. You had like the opening 6-man was relatively hot. You had Diesel versus Taker, which was very good. So even like the lulls in the show, like even like Ultimate Warrior, like say what you want about him. I mean, currently we're tracking him as the worst of the year, but that return was pretty epic, I thought. So WrestleMania, I think, still maintains the best pay-per-view of the year. So WWF maintains those 2 points. And just as a reminder, for anybody listening, not watching, WWF has 13 points, ECW has 6, WCW has 3. So worst pay-per-view of the year, still we have WCW Super Brawl holding on to that with -1 point. Best in-ring. So now we're looking at in-ring. Overall, who has the best in-ring? Currently, we're tracking WWF as the best in-ring. Now, this show, like I said, this is probably the best in-ring product in terms of a pay-per-view that WCW has developed this year, I would say, by far. But is this a tipping point? Can I say that WCW is better than WWF in-ring? Because in WWF, we got, Taker and Mankind are doing good stuff. Shawn is the champion, and he's a mega cunt. But he always delivers in the ring. You got Owen Hart around. You got Owen Hart around. You got Mark Marrow. Goldust is doing some pretty good stuff. You got a pretty, well-rounded roster. Even the tag team division, while it's pretty ice cold, it's always quality in ring. So, but WCW, we got the cruiserweight division, which is still in kind of the building stages, although we're starting to really solidify like the Rey, Mysterio, and Dean Malenko feud. We got, introducing new guys like Juventud, Psychosis, Super Calo, Chris Jericho just debuted. We got Benoit. We got up top, we got Flair. We got Macho Man, Giants. The NWO are doing things. Konnan's coming out of the gates finally. DDP's doing good stuff. This is a tough one, man. It's a tough one. I mean, and ECW is to me not in the conversation right now, because it's a lot of just walking, talking, brawling in that company, with a few exceptions. But WCW has just poached all of their good guys. So do I stick with WWF? Here's the thing. I think WWF might have more variety, although WCW has the cruiserweights and WWF doesn't really. I'm gonna say WWF holds on to this for now, just because because pay-per-view wise, I think they're very similar in terms of in-ring, but TV is WCW is just very old school, very squash heavy, very, count out finishes for every other match or disqualifications. It's a lot of the nature of the NWO story leads to a lot of chaotic matches, a lot of non-finishes, whereas WWF is more straight-laced in that aspect. So for that reason, I think WWF holds on to this for now. So they keep those 4 points. Best match of the year, Shawn Michaels versus Diesel at In Your House 7. And the worst match, also at In Your House 7, Ultimate Warrior versus Goldust. So the question is here, as on Fall Brawl 1996, what was the best match? What was the worst match? Best match, I might throw at Jericho Benoit, either Jericho Benoit or Konnan Juventud. War Games is good too for very different reasons, I guess, but I don't know if any of those 3 matches match what Shawn and Diesel did, because I would say Shawn and Diesel, it was just so fluid, but also the emotion was there, the story was there. It was very novel in terms of like using the announce table and chairs and things like that. So for all those reasons, I think it's going to be a hard one to beat for me. So I think Shawn and Diesel holds on to that. So WWF keeps those 2 points. Worst match, Warrior Goldust. Nothing on this show is worse than that. So WWF maintains that -1 point. So now we're looking at the roster / star power. Best overall. Currently, we're tracking WWF as the best. And since we last looked at this, I think the only change has been the addition of Chris Jericho, which is a positive. WWF, I don't think has really gained anybody since then. No one's significant. So yeah, I think WCW holds on to this. So they keep those 4 points for best overall roster. Wrestler of the Year, we are tracking Mankind from WWF. Who on this show would give him a running? You could say Macho Man. You can say Flair. No. Rey Mysterio is starting to make a good case for himself. Benoit even. I don't know if anybody eclipses Mankind, because that also takes into account, or does it? Because in my head, I'm also counting his Mick Foley stuff, or his Cactus Jack stuff from ECW. He just happens to be in WWF. It happens to be the company where he made the biggest impact this year. So that's why WWF gets these points. I think Mankind is going to hold on to this for now. But we're keeping an eye on Rey Mysterio, Benoit, Flair. Flair hasn't really done much, actually, this year. So probably not Flair. Rey Mysterio, I think, right now is WCW's best shot to overtake this. But I don't think he's there yet. His match with Super Calo on this card didn't blow me away, really. So, but we'll keep an eye on that. Worst Wrestler of the Year, Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, I don't think anybody. This used to be Hulk Hogan at one point, but I thought his performance was fine here. Who else would it even be? Chavo Guerrero? Yeah, I think Warrior holds on to this. So WWF keeps that -1 point. So last but not least, we're looking at out of ring. So this is gimmicks, characters, promos, storylines, etc. Best overall out of ring stuff. Tracking ECW. So my argument here last time, which I think is still going to hold, is that while WCW and the NWO arguably is the best storyline going in wrestling at this point, that's really all they have. And now it's a common thread throughout most, if not all, of the show, but it's just a very top-heavy show and not a lot of story towards the bottom. Whereas ECW, We talked about it in my latest review with Chubby Dudley, talking about natural born killers. Like all of the storylines that are happening at the same time at this point is just nuts. So ECW is just on a completely different level. So I think they hold on to those 4 points here for just best overall out of ring. Best character storyline, character / storyline. We're tracking Sandman versus Raven from ECW. Now, does the NWO take this over? Is the question here. Sandman and Raven. Like I said, if you haven't caught my, last couple ECW reviews, I mean, that story is really cooking at this point. We got Raven like just psychologically abducting Sandman's family, and they're wearing the vests, and Sandman's son is hitting them with a can. Like, it's craziness. Is that better though, or worse than the NWO? I'm thinking it's tough because you got the NWO. It's a takeover of the whole company. Really revolutionary, and it just the effect that it has on the company as a whole. And I mean, we're gonna see like the Blue World Order in ECW. So NWO affects the entire industry as well. So I think I gotta go NWO here, as cliche as it is. I think NWO takes it. Now that could change. Next time we visit ECW, I might decide to change it. But I think NWO takes the cake for now. So finally got a score change here. So WCW takes those 2 points away from ECW. Last category here, the worst character / storyline. Telling you, man, nothing on this show is bad, especially in terms of like characters or storylines. So I don't think anything from WCW would enter this territory. Where right now we're tracking Jerry Lawler from WWF. His feuds with Ultimate Warrior, with Jake the Snake, Isaac Yankem stuff. Like, it's all been terrible. So yeah, Jerry Lawler holds on to that. So the WWF maintains that -1 point. So that brings this one to a close. So updated scores. WWF still in the lead with 13 points. WCW now in second with 5 points. And ECW in last with 4 points. So heating up here, at least, between WCW and ECW. But a lot of time for things to change, it's very easy to see big point swings here. So keep subscribed and followed and all that shit to check out the later episodes, and we'll see what changes in the last couple months of 1996. So that's about all Daddy has for you today. Appreciate you guys joining, listening, watching, tasting, all of that stuff. Follow, subscribe, poke me, stick your finger in my belly button, and that's about it. Is my ASMR voice. I was thinking about maybe doing the entire podcast like this, but don't want you slipping out of your chair. All right, I'm done. Thank you guys for listening. Appreciate you. Love you. Mwah. I'm hard.
Yeah. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest. Talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started.